Thank you.
You have 2 minutes, Mr. Diehl.
Yeah, well, having spent the last 2 years really campaigning as hard as I can to obviously make sure I know the people, the town departments, the town managers, talking to everybody I can, I do see it as a full-time job myself. And I know that I've got a campaign office right here in Whitman. My goal is to make that a district office once I'm elected. I don't feel like 1 hour a month is enough time to be available to people to come in, see me when they've got time and need to talk about certain things. I'd like to get a wish list from the town managers, for example, on some projects that they need locally that I maybe can leverage my office to help with. I certainly want to be available to people that can just feel free to walk in and talk to me about issues that I can help with constituent services. And then if I'm not at the State House, like I said, I'll be there from 9 to 5, making sure I talk to them. Per diem, I certainly don't feel the need to take a per diem myself. And as far as, if the people feel like it should be a part-time legislature should have either a reduced salary or eliminate the salary, I'll take those ideas up to Beacon Hill and push them. I really do feel like this should be a public service, not a career that people turn this thing into. And so what I'd like to do is obviously represent what people think is right. And if that's what they decide is right, I'll do that.
Would you like a minute?
Sure, if I could. First off, Geoff referenced, I think, the district hour that I hold once a month, an hour. That's something, obviously, to keep as a formality if people need to do it. But more importantly, I meet with constituents anytime they want throughout the district, whether it's having a coffee at a place, at night, anywhere. So you can harp on that, but I'm in the district all the time to meet with people. I would also say this, in terms of, the public service, being a father of 3 young children, it's not the type of job that you're sitting there going, boy, I'm making a ton of money. Okay, it's a job that you have to want to do, that you love to do, and that you want to help people at. So, I'm proud of the work I do, and I think Geoff and I agree, it really is a full-time job.
Would you like a minute to rebut?
Yeah, I think I mentioned your district hours once, so I think harping on it, I don't know I exaggerate things I'm saying. But anyway, I'm not harping on it. I'm just mentioning that I think 1 hour versus keeping an office where people know they can come to see you anytime that they can. They know it's a place to go to get answers. That's what I would like to do. And I do agree, it's a full-time job. Looking forward to it.
Ready for the next question? We'll go to Mr. Zaremba. Mr. Zaremba, if you could give Mr. Diehl the next question.
Okay, tonight we've discussed quite a few issues that apply statewide or federally or globally. I'd like to bring this down to really the local level here. What do you feel is the top issue that is unique to the 7th Plymouth District?
The 7th Plymouth, well, it really, I'd say, economically, it comes down to funding for the schools. We looked at Abington, that's got 2 school closures, teachers' cuts. Whitman had teachers' cuts for the last several years. And East Bridgewater, again, the school construction is important to make sure that money comes in. So education, but there's also things beyond that you find out when you're on the finance committee you wouldn't otherwise know about. When police or fire department come in to talk about their budgets, they talk about things that are creeping into our neighborhoods like drug use, increased drug use. And those are things that, especially in this area, we're finding it's on the rise and it's not good. Abington, I think, maybe even more so than Whitman, East Bridgewater. You read the papers and you're starting to see problems that kids are having with, I think, Percocet even, and I know there's been OxyContin abuse. So drug use, to me, is something that's also, I think, on the rise. I'd like to make sure that we have programs in place to take care of that. And also, let's stem the problem that causes that. That's a symptom. The problem is that, again, I believe that when you have a state with rising costs, you create places where people don't feel like they have a chance to get a job, and they're sitting at home unemployed, and they're finding things to do that maybe are detrimental, and so drug use follows sometimes. And I just think that we need to get people working again, get them focused on going in a positive motion, and hopefully that will help be part of the solution to drug use that I think is going on. And then again, let's make sure we have programs to support people getting off that.
You have 2 minutes.
Sure. John, could I just have that question again, if you don't mind?
Sure. What do you feel is the top issue that is unique to the 7th Plymouth District?
Okay, unique. Okay. I mean, I agree that the top issue is local aid and funding for education, but I'm not necessarily sure if that's unique to this district, because I think that's across the board, across the Commonwealth. I think what's unique about this district really is the difficulties when you talk about economic development in this area, where we don't have the industrial base that a lot of areas have. We don't have the highways right there running through our district. So it's a much more of a challenge within our district to get that economic development going. So in terms of need, I think local aid is key, but I think the unique problem we have is economic development, and we've got to do a better job of doing that. I'm really excited about Southfield and the prospect of that. Clearly the recession slowed that down. There was just some very good recent news with the federal government that the funding for the East-West Road came through, and that's going to be a major boon to this area. And what's great about that is that will then open up, I think, a greater area to then spur economic development further down Route 18 to Whitman and East Bridgewater. So I think it's a unique opportunity that may help a unique problem.
You have 1 minute for rebuttal. Would you like it?
No, I agree. I think to the extent that we do have a tough time bringing industry to this area, we don't have, I think, in some cases, the water systems to support some of the biotech requirements to bring some of the heavy industry in. So we do need to make sure that what businesses we do have, the local retail, stay in place, and that we, again, support those areas with town services to make sure that businesses want to stay in the area and keep people working.
Would you like her?
Nope, all
Okay,
set.
very good. On November 2nd, voters will be asked to repeal the state's affordable housing law, known as Chapter 40B. Now, advocates on both sides of the ballot question, too, agree that Massachusetts needs more affordable housing. What they disagree on about is a 40-year-old law. It's meant to bring more units and has it delivered on its promise? Some don't know. Where do you stand on this law being repealed, and what have you heard from either the voters or town officials regarding 40B and its repeal?
Sure.
You have the question.
Well, first off, I'm opposed to the ballot initiative. I'm opposed to the repeal of 40B, but I'm fully cognizant of the problems with it. But I don't think the problems with it necessarily justify repealing it, because then you're just creating a vacuum at a time when I think affordable housing is a critical need, and we would be creating a vacuum for seniors, for veterans, for disabled people at a time when we can't do that. So that being said, I'm opposed to it for that reason. I think if you look statewide, I think 40B has created a lot of new housing in Massachusetts. But the problem with the towns, and where the town leaders have the problem, is really through the appeals process. The fact of the matter is they may say no to a developer or want to do it different, and it goes up to the Housing Appeals Committee. And it has seemed that the trend has been majority of those cases come back against the towns. And I know there was a recent Supreme Judicial Court ruling that held up the appeals committee, but it sort of gave some, I think, hope to the cities and towns, saying the cities and towns, have to have a little bit more say in it. So I think what we have to do is tweak it, get a little bit more oversight of this committee, so that we can be making sure that the towns are getting a fair deal. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if the statute is there and saying that the town should get a fair share, but the committee's not doing it, the problem's not with the law. The problem's with the committee and the appeals process. So I think that's where we've got to work on, is the appeals process.
Very good. You have 2 minutes, Mr. Diehl.
Well, I do find that the Chapter 40B, excuse me, is a flawed law that allows developers to, push the planning boards to bend to their wills. The problem here is that this could have been addressed in the legislature. I know my opponent voted not to allow it to be amended in the legislature, so now it had to come to a ballot initiative. So, yeah, while we don't want to really have it off the books, so that there is a gap of when we can have a better law put back in place, it had a chance to be reformed, but it wasn't reformed. I do think that we need to, I guess in this case, this is what happens with Beacon Hill. You have to, I guess, send a message somehow by repealing it and then having it reworked.
Do you have a rebuttal on that?
No, other than I'm not sure specifically, and maybe before the next debate, Geoff can share the exact vote, but and I'm not saying Geoff's wrong. I'm just saying I'm not aware of what he's talking about. But, we deal with a lot of affordable housing issues. We have created some initiatives for it. We've done some more funding for it. So, but, obviously specifically to that question, I can't address it just because I'm not sure what vote he's talking about of the, many that we take. But we'll address that the next time, Kevin.
Okay. We probably have about 5 or 6 minutes left. Justin, do you have a question that these gentlemen could give a quick answer to?
Sure. You stole my 40B question, so I got to think of another
I
one.
apologize.
That's all right. Well, actually,
back for
there's
it
been a
later.
lot of discussion about, I know this come up a couple of times in the Plymouth County Commissioner's office, about the idea of maybe abolishing county government. Is it still effective? Is it still worthwhile? So maybe just get your views very quickly on whether or not you think that's
Mr. Diehl, we'll
something we
get
should keep.
that
Mr. Diehl?
Yeah, well, I mean, Anthony O'Brien, the Plymouth County Commissioner, believes that it should be abolished, and I mean, he's front and center on this thing. If he believes that we've got an overlap of bureaucracy, I don't know why we should doubt him. I understand that there's some functions like the registry of deeds or courthouses that would need to be taken over, but I don't think we need another layer of government to take over to be sure that we get our mosquito control, for example.
Very nice. Good.
Yeah, Justin, I don't have a direct answer on that because I'm just not sure. There's so much that really has to be looked at before we do that. I mean, obviously, once the sheriff's was taken over by the state, the county's in a much more precarious position. And I know Tony, and I respect his opinion, but there are areas we have to look at. We have the registry of deeds. We have a county retirement system. So there are issues that have to be looked at. I know initially when the sheriff's were looked at being moved over, there were some serious problems, and we had to really work at the legislation to make sure that the county retirees weren't left out to dry. So I don't want to say just abolish it because I have a fear that some retirees would be left hanging out to dry. So we have to just look at it more before that type of decision is made. But I agree. I think that decision is looming.
Gentlemen, I want to commend both of you on doing a great job and trying to stick to the issues and being passionate. It's now time for closing statements. And Mr. Diehl, you won the right to
I get to go first.
Go first. So you have 2 minutes, sir.
Very good. Well, as I hope you see, I'm very interested, obviously, in making sure that I stay on top of the local issues. I've been on top of them. I want to continue to stay on top of them and help up at Beacon Hill to make sure that the right things are done. We don't really have a two-party system here in Massachusetts. It's really run by three people: the Speaker, the Senate President, and the Governor. I think with my opponent's voting record of 99% of the time voting with the Speaker, you're talking about not really representing what's the interest of the towns, but what's the interest of the power brokers on Beacon Hill. So I want to be a voice for the people of the 7th Plymouth, not just another vote for the Speaker, and I hope on November 2nd you'll give me that opportunity to serve you as your next state representative.
Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Justin and John. It's an honor again, as I stated at the beginning, to serve as your state representative, and I look forward to continuing that service over the next 2 years. These have been some very difficult times that we've been through, and we know that obviously at homes and in towns people are suffering. I'm proud of my record up on Beacon Hill, and I'm proud, more importantly, of the reforms that we've done. The reforms that we've done to say, you know what, the status quo is not acceptable. We've done the transportation reform, ethics reform, pension reform. We've also managed this budget, and independent agencies have applauded Massachusetts for the way that we've positioned ourselves to get out of it. So I look forward to, because hey, there's a lot of hard work to do, and I know that, and I look forward to continuing that work. And I think it's important that when we look at, who do you want representing you? And I know my opponent has had some problems with some of the issues I raised, but I raise them because ultimately at the end of the day, you got to have accountability. And there are statements being made in the previous debate and this one that my opponent's denying that clearly were made and we have said. And I think the people of this district deserve to know that they're going to have someone that has the leadership and has the accountability to stand up for what they do, but also what they say. And I ask for your vote on November 2nd.
I want to thank everybody for tuning in this evening. I want to thank our esteemed panel, Mr. John Zaremba from the Enterprise, the Suburban Editor, and the General Manager of the Whitman Express, Justin Graber. Thank you for being here. And also Mr. Geoff Diehl, who's the Republican candidate, and the incumbent Democrat, Mr. Alan McCarthy.
Thank you, Kevin.
And I want to thank you at home. Don't forget to vote on November 2nd. It's very important. And we want to thank our staff here. You've been watching election 2010 debate for the 7th Plymouth District. Stay tuned for more local programming right here on Whitman Hands Community Access. Have a good evening.